Everyone's a Christian until it gets biblical. I see people say this a lot, and yet it appears that nobody actually means it. You would infer from this that they themselves accept Christianity in its full biblical meaning, that they don't pick and choose what portions of the Bible suit their desires and ignore those portions which do not. Now, I don't care how devoted anyone thinks they are, everyone is selectively choosing the portions that suit their desires. And we've seen this evolve over the centuries. 150 years ago, the Bible was used as a defense of slavery because the Bible openly promotes slavery. It doesn't just not forbid it, it provides the rules for which slavery should exist. And even in the New Testament, for anyone who wants to play that New Testament, Old Testament game, tells slaves to be obedient to their masters, even if those masters are abusive. Find me a Christian today that won't find some way of rationalizing himself out of this. The most common one I hear is God understood that there was going to be a slow evolution of humanity, and he had to just work with the times. Now, what kind of lunacy is that one? God couldn't tell it like it is? He had to break it to the people slowly? People just had to have slavery for a while? They couldn't get that idea that it was a bad thing? He didn't have that kind of clout with his people to just tell them to do what was right? God thought, it's a necessary evil. We might need to keep that around for a while. There's no good explanation except accept it for what it says. But find me a Christian who claims to be biblical and will do that. And here's one that to throw into the Christian community today. Jesus called for a year of Jubilee, which under Hebrew law meant that all debts would be canceled and all lands evenly redistributed amongst all of the people. Find me an evangelical today in America who will go along with mass debt forgiveness of all the people and redistribution of all of the properties of America so that everybody has an equal share. Find me one. And of course, abortion is a big one within the evangelical community today. But when was the last time you heard an evangelical mention that in the Bible it says that if a married woman should become pregnant by another man, she should go to her priest and get an abortion? Again, somebody's going to say, but that was Old Testament. Yes, it was, but not specifically part of the covenant which Jesus said that he came to fulfill and replace. The act of not accepting this passage, but then accepting something else out of the Old Testament means you're picking and choosing. You're not being that biblical Christian. And while we're on the subject of abortion, the Bible is far from clear as to when life begins because it gives three different positions. One is at conception or even preconception. One is at first breath and one is at the quickening. The quickening being when a baby starts kicking and becoming active, being a baby. Up until the last 100 years, the church largely accepted the idea of life beginning at the quickening. Life at conception is a modern-day phenomenon, which was not broadly accepted by the Christian community throughout all of our past. How about this one? Let your women be silent in church. Now, there are a handful of churches that accept this scripture, but they are few and far between. Which leads us to another not accepted reality of the Bible. Women are property. They are not independent entities unto themselves. This is why in the Old Testament, if a man raped a woman, it was a property crime and not a crime against the woman herself. So to make this crime right, you had to pay the family, pay for the damages to the property. Does anyone want to stand up for that one? Or will we find ways to weasel our way out of this or avoid addressing it altogether? So let's be honest about this. If you're creating rationalizations in your mind, if you're finding ways to allow this to fit within your conceptions of Christianity, your conceptions of reality, you're not being biblical. You're imposing your perceptions over the top of the Bible instead of just accepting it for what it is, which a biblical Christian would impose the Bible over the top of their own conceptions, over the top of society's conceptions. But that is not, in fact, what takes place. It says a lot of things that people are not comfortable with. And you know who is most uncomfortable with these things? Christians. And quite often the very same Christians who make absurd claims such as this one. And I can tell you, but I can tell you, that is, what they will agree upon. And it will come from these same biblical Christians. They will all agree that it is I who am spreading hate and lies and falsehoods for pointing out their hypocrisy. This they will all agree with. This they will call persecution. This they will call evidence of their own self-righteousness.